So good morning. I'm so glad to be here today, and this is my last Sunday of speaking, and our topics are going to be beauty is the transformer, and it's also creating your own prayers. So we're going to finish up the series of Secrets of the Lost Mode of Prayer. It's Greg Braden. I love his words. I love his book. So when I walked in, they had a picture of Reverend Joanne on the podium. And I said, that's beauty. That is beauty. She is such a beautiful woman and has empowered all of us through this time. And she will be back with us next Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that. So this Sunday, we're going to look at beauty as the transformer and understand that as souls that pivot, souls are like a swinging door. So sometimes we pivot to the material, the sense desire, and sometimes we pivot to the spiritual discipline. That's all of us, and it's all the time. And that's why if we really take it seriously to keep our souls in good form, we're busy all day long with that swinging door. So they use the example, Greg uses the example of Delilah. You've got this beautiful woman, so you say, well, is that what beauty is? And of course, Samson said, yes, that's what beauty is. And it led to love. It led to trust, it led to betrayal, and then it led to real death. Well, metaphysically, what does that mean? So Delilah was a Philistine, and they're opposed to any spiritual discipline. They are sense desire and air thinking. So Delilah is in that state of being. Samson is physical strength under spiritual discipline. So those two meet up, and all of a sudden, Samson decides, well, this sense consciousness isn't so bad. This sense consciousness feels good. How many times are we in the world and it feels good? And we oppose true spiritual principles. And then all of a sudden, as Gene Houston would say, right into the microphone, uh-oh. And we get ourselves in trouble, and that's what happened with Samson. He got himself in trouble, and it actually led to his death. But before he died, he did topple the temple of the Philistines, and that means that he toppled the idea. When you read the Bible and you hear all these people are falling or in danger, it's really the ideas, it's the negative ideas, it's the air thinking. They're toppling by Samson's hand, but it was his death too. So a lot of times this beauty, this shiny object that we talk about, is actually kind of danger. And it's danger only because we give it power. And that's the thing. My very first teacher told me when I called her with a danger of sense energy. So I was all worked up. I was all afraid because I didn't know what truth was. And she said to me, and she was so exact in her instruction, give it no energy. Give it no energy. And I listened to her, and it went away. That feeling that was inside of me. So to let you know that love must have the assurance of truth. There's no way that we can have this love because Samson had love for Delilah, but it was sense love. Our love that we're talking about as Unity Truth students is the assurance of truth. That we know in the Holy Spirit that we have confidence and courage, power in our thought and word. And to understand, as Gene Houston taught me, you must speak with authority. Because that's what true assurance of truth is. It goes back to St. Francis, who said, there are beautiful and wild forces within us. It's there for all of us, the equality that we all are. There is no better and best. There's beauty. Reverend Joan is beauty, but there's no better or best. And she wouldn't want it that way. She's taught us to be so authentic. But don't forget that Charles Fillmore came along and he introduced the 12 powers as beauty and power. Now, we can look at beauty in a different way to scientists. And the scientists may think that a solution to a mathematical problem or equation is beauty. The photographer does the contrast. He does the sunlight and the shadow. That's beauty for him. To understand that the Navajo have taught us to pray, the beauty upon which you base your life. That's a great question for us to ask, the beauty upon which you base your life. Is it a force? Is it an experience? Is beauty a quality? I know people that have great beauty as a quality. Is it a judgment? And is it a perception? You know, they say life is perception. Everybody has a different perception. But if it's beauty, if we give the sense consciousness to the negative, no energy, and give beauty energy, then we can be, and in its presence, we can change. And you see people living in that beauty. The power of beauty appears to be dormant until we give it our attention. Once again, that word attention comes in, as when John was poked and they said, pay attention. We're always asked to pay attention, to realize that beauty is more than things. I get caught up in things. I want a new chair. Although I like my chair and I do fall asleep in it very well, but I want a new one. So you get caught up in things and you can feel kind of sorry for yourself that you don't have a new chair. But it's silly. It's silliness. Sometimes our path is silly. So the experience of heart and mind and soul, when paid attention to, is the understanding that beauty is always present in all things. You can find beauty in hurt, wisdom, blessing. So my niece, who was 38 years old, went to the doctor because she had a bad cough. She was John's godchild and she was my goddess child. And the doctor said to her, you have 6 months to live. So the family, of course, went into shock. She was the youngest of 6 children. And we were in shock. And so I went to visit her for many healing times. And so as it was getting closer, she was still mobile, but she was becoming weak. John and I went. And she had 3 children, so we spent a lot of time with the children because we're children people. And her mother went to pick her up and bring her to visit us at the condo. So I don't know if you've ever looked in a door that the sun's coming in, but you can't really see the face. You can see the person, but not the face. And she walks in, she had a white t-shirt on, because she was very thin, black jeans, and she had this little fuzz in her hair. Now, she had a big mane of hair like I have, dark, but now she had little fuzz, like little duck fuzz on her head. And she comes in the room and she says to me, "Oh, Aunt Donna, look at me." And I said, "What?" I said, you walked in the door. The sun was to your back. I saw this blonde hair, this white T-shirt, and these black jeans. I said, you look like Billy Idol to me. I said, you're my rock star. And she laughed, and I laughed, and she came, and I caressed her. Beauty. Beauty is powerful. It comes through if we allow it. And I have to say, the idea of allow it is my most famous thing in my spiritual path, which is, I don't know if it's 40 years old or how, I'm only 40, so I'm not sure. But anyway, 40 years, allow it has been the secret, because we are the blocks and the walls to our own growth. And so to allow it is a big deal. So we have to allow beauty. You know, it's funny, and we can use Mother Teresa. I don't like to use the big guns when I talk about it, because everybody thinks then, well, if they're not Mother Teresa, then they can't be holy, holy, holy. Well, that's not true. But Mother Teresa really had a gift for seeing beauty. I mean, she saw it in the streets with the dying and the sick and the hungry and the suffering. She could always find beauty, but so can we. We can either pay attention to the awful, we have enough of that right now, or we can pay attention to the beauty. And the beauty is all of the service that people are doing, all of the things that people are doing to help others, to help others. So the beauty is the blueprint, but also when I was studying the 12 powers, whoever was teaching the class said that the 12 powers are the blueprint to the Christ Spirit. So we have a blueprint to the Christ Spirit. We have to understand that beauty and experience is the blueprint, and it'll reflect to the world. So these 12 powers and this beauty speaks to the quantum field. And the quantum field, going back to unity, is the law of mind action. So to understand that everything fits together. The inner beliefs are our outer world. Thoughts held in mind, and we all know this, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So we know that this happens. So as we know that we're in the blueprint of powerful, mystical energy, we start to create our own prayers. We pray in a mystical language, as Susan did so beautiful today. We know that it can change our bodies, our lives, our world. The language of prayer has no rules, no right or wrong, no words. Charles Fillmore said, silence, silence, peace be still. And there's a great strength and trust in spirit in that silence. We have understanding. But as Greg Braden went on to explain as he did his tour of the secrets of the lost mode of prayer, he said the abbot in Tibet told him, feeling as prayer. Feeling as prayer. Trust me, I felt my niece that day. And I was going to lift her up in a youthful way of a rock star. So the abbot said, but chanting many hours a day, bells, bowls, chimes, incense. You know, we did a healing circle when we were all meeting, and we did bells, bowls, chimes. We didn't do incense, I love it, but... So he said, we do that to create the feeling in the body. We need assistance because in the Western culture, we don't feel because, I don't know, I think we think it's weak. Feeling is so powerful, and yet we don't feel easily. So we question ourselves, and that's why Heart Talk's so great, because Heart Talk teaches you, bring that energy into that heart. Feel. To understand that prayer is what we are. It's a state of being rather than doing. And I know you hear that a lot, but it really means a lot. Because when we do, and does that not sound Western? And then all of a sudden, this pandemic hit. I don't know what this pandemic is, and I'm not going to pretend to know. I don't know if it's awful or if it's the flu or what. I don't know what it is, but I know it stopped all of us. And I know children were home with their parents. And I know that everybody was trying to work out how do we make this work in a loving way. There were some who were suffering, I want to tell you that. Families that are under stress, they're suffering. But there's also great joy. And I know my children are experiencing that. So we understand that if we follow the directions of this book, which are the first is feeling is prayer. That's our lost mode of prayer. Feeling is prayer. Because in the Western culture, we think words are prayer. And the healing circle we had, most of it was done in silence, because we were banging the stuff and the chimes and the bowls, and then we had Reiki, which was silent too. And people said, what a great circle. But it was silent. So we understand the first mode is feeling is prayer. The second is hurt. You have got to walk into life. And I say that honestly because I've had to walk into so much hurt in life. And I put my shoulders back and I walk into it because I know I have the assurance of truth. And I know that wisdom comes out of hurt. And that we love. To feel love, we must be vulnerable to pain. To feel love, we must be vulnerable to pain. That's Greg's words, and I can tell you, my vulnerability is my spirituality because that's how I live my life. I'm vulnerable to pain. And then blessing. The ancient tradition, I love this. The only difference between angels of heavens and angels of earth is that angels of heavens remember that they are angels. We forget. I always want to write that book. Why do we forget? But I forget to write it. But I always want to write that book. Why? It really bugs me. Because, I've been around a long time. And we do forget. We know how to be spiritual. We know how to feel. We know how to say prayers. We know blueprints. And then today, understanding that beauty is the transformer. And I can't help but talk about Reverend Joanne. She's a transformer in this world. And she never puts her lipstick on. Now, my kids laugh at me because I always have to put my lipstick on. So my problem is these masks. It's not that they bug me, it's I can't get my lipstick on. Reverend Joanne has taught us to be women from our heart and from our soul. She's taught this church so much in this transformative energy of beauty. The power of beauty is real, it's present, and we are the change. And then the last is the creating of prayer. And I can share with you that during Desert Storm, 1991, John and I had a friend who was a Peace Corps worker. We had her daughter in YOU from Nepal. She was a Peace Corps worker, and she called us and she said, okay, they're starting a war, Desert Storm, 1991, that was the first one. And she said, come to a Mesa chapel. She was a graduate of CASE. She said, come to a Mesa chapel. We are going to have a meditation in silence, and everyone is to bring an instrument to play. So I brought my crystal bowl. but we had Native Americans with drums. We had a person on the grand piano at Mesa Chapel playing the grand piano. We had violinists. There was a person playing the flute. And we can't remember how long we played. We played an hour and probably longer. Not one word was spoken. And we would walk the chapel, the flute player and the violins. It was magnificent. And it was done in silence. And that war, I think, was 3 days. So we must feel to bring about change. And in closing, I'd like to say the original text from Aramaic about ask and you shall receive. The text is, ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing this book. I love this book. I hesitated to hold it up because of all the holding up books about, but I love this book. And I'm so grateful for Greg Braden that he wrote it and that I could enjoy it. Thank you for listening.